On the 4th of March 2025, one man set off from Istanbul in Turkey with an extraordinary goal in mind: to walk more than 6,000 kilometres all the way home to Claremorris in County Mayo, completely barefoot. Eamonn Keaveney has already smashed the existing world record for the longest barefoot journey and is now making his way across Ireland, raising funds for Jigsaw and Friends of the Earth along the way. And I'm delighted to say that Eamonn joins me now. Eamonn, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks so much for joining us. And incredible story, incredible what you are doing. And you're nearing the end of your journey. But take us back nearly a year ago to the 4th of March last. What was behind this incredible expedition you've undertaken?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of a long story. It goes back to 2016, really, because I walked around Ireland in 2016, did 2,000 kilometres, and that at the time was the Guinness World Record for the longest barefoot journey. And since then, I wanted to sort of do another one. And the logical thing to do when you've walked around a country is to walk across a continent. So here I am, nearly a year later after setting off from Istanbul.
Okay, so but taking on a continent, it's incredible you went around Ireland barefoot, but taking on a continent is an entirely different prospect. And most people wouldn't even walk to the shop without shoes. So why barefoot?
Like that, I really can't answer at the end of the day. It's something that I got into at one point, and then I saw the record in the book, in the Guinness Book of Records, and I thought, oh, I could try that. And I did. But beyond that, I mean, I don't have a sort of a grand story or narrative. Maybe I'll have to cook one up so I can answer that question better.
Well, yeah, look, even without one, it's still incredible that you decided to do it and that you are doing it and pulling it off as well. When you first told family, friends about the journey around Ireland, and then once having completed that you were going to take on Europe, what was their reaction?
Well, the reactions this time, the second time now, were a lot more positive, I would say. I think they knew, because I'd previously done one, that I was going to do it regardless of what they thought of it, basically. The first time around, I distinctly remember sitting at a family dinner back home and announcing to my siblings and my parents, saying, I'm going walking around Ireland now next year. And I was promptly told, no, you're not. You're not doing that. You're not allowed to do that. You'll get killed. That's not happening. So they were much more supportive this time around, I think, because they knew I'd go and do it anyway.
We'll get to Europe in just a moment, but obviously your journey around Ireland steeled you for taking on this much bigger challenge. Going barefoot, did you have any... You must have had some tough moments, Eamonn, both around Ireland and around Europe, where, you're walking on roads, or you're watching out for stones or broken glass or just anything that could basically hurt your foot and really scupper your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say there are a lot of compelling reasons to wear shoes, which you can quickly discover when you're walking long distances barefoot. Yeah. Glass is an issue sometimes in urban areas, but it's actually not too bad because you can usually see it and avoid it. It's only very, very, very small pieces of glass that will never really be an issue. The big thing for me, I suppose the two big things. One is that your feet just kind of get a bit battered from walking. Like, if you're doing 5 or 10 kilometres, that's kind of no problem. But if you're doing kind of 20 plus, they just get sore and tender, and that'll slow you down the following day. And then thorns, which for a little bit have been sort of the bane of my existence, particularly after the hedges have been cut. The thorns are just a nightmare because they're sort of designed, by millions of years of evolution to hurt you. So they're not great. Yeah,
they must really go in deep. And although maybe, for the European journey, your trip around Ireland has left you with soles like leather on the bottom of your feet.
I wish. They do. The skin does get tougher, but it doesn't kind of just... It's not a sort of like linear process where they just get tougher and tougher and tougher and tougher, if you know what I mean. They will get sort of battered. And also I found that if I walk over a certain kind of mileage, the skin will wear away as well, in exactly the same way that the sole on your shoe will wear away. And you have to strike this delicate balance, basically, between, making progress and not sort of eroding your feet away.
God, yeah, there must have been so many moments when you were either in agony or on the verge of it. You started in Istanbul last March. In terms of the journey, what was the route that you had plotted?
Well, the route that I plotted, and I basically followed it, with some minor deviations. But I started in Istanbul, as you said, and then I was in that little northwestern chunk of Turkey. Then went through Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, and Austria. I should also add that my girlfriend Ellie was with me from Istanbul all the way to Vienna, which was great. And then
Was she wearing
went
shoes?
home after that. She was wearing shoes.
Okay,
yeah.
good. You wouldn't do that to her.
But no, to be fair, she walked, over 3,000 kilometres. And then I continued on in Austria and on to Germany and into France, and came in at East France and then turned north and went across to England and Wales, and then finally across to Rosslare, and then made my way through Ireland. Yeah.
And when you were planning out the logistics of this, Eamonn, did you give yourself a rough timeline of when you wanted to arrive in Claremorris, if not the day, like the week or the month? Or is it tough to do that when you haven't walked across Europe barefoot before? You're not quite sure. You can't plan for every contingency.
No, you can't. And I had this sort of like window. I kind of like had looked at the distance and got an idea of like how much mileage I could maybe cover in a day and so on. And so I had this sort of window where a really, really ambitious end date would have been in November to get to Claremorris, which was obviously pie in the sky nonsense. But even my less ambitious one was like, oh, well, I might be walking until, the middle of January, but that's kind of worst case scenario. And of course, it's the end of February now. So you really can't nail yourself to a particular day with this. It's going to be the start of March, I think, by the time I get to Claremorris. And just things happen. There are delays. There could be weather or injury or illness, I suppose. I haven't had anything major, but I got sort of laid up for a week in Kerry because one of those thorns, which are usually fine, it got infected and I had to stop for an entire week. So there's no point in sort of saying I'm going to be here on, Tuesday, the 12th of November or whatever. It's not going to work out that way.
In a way, maybe that thorn did you a good service. You probably needed a week off after being travelling for the bones of a year, and you made it through. It sounds like you made it through Europe incredibly without too much ill fortune. What was it like? What were the toughest physical challenges? Be it the heat, the cold, the rough terrain, or did you come into any difficulties anywhere because of the very fact that you were barefoot? Maybe if you tried to eat somewhere or stop to use facilities or whatever it might be.
Do you know something? I think I could count on my two hands the number of times it was an issue. It very, very rarely happens that anyone would sort of say anything. And maybe just a small handful of times in a bar or a restaurant or a shop, I was kind of approached and told, but asked why I wasn't wearing shoes. And I think in a lot of occasions, once someone asks and you explain, then they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. But most of the time, people either didn't notice or didn't care, which was great for me because I was actually quite concerned about it beforehand. So I didn't really have many troubles with businesses like that. I think the toughest parts of it were probably the summer heat, actually, because the Irish Constitution is really made for like 38-degree sunshine with no possibility of getting in under the shade and getting out of it, to be honest.
Yeah,
and Hungary was brutally hot.
You'd have had to lather those feet in a lot of sun cream, I'd imagine, factor 50. Did you have any moments where you thought you might not make it? Maybe the week in Kerry aside, or any kind of moments where really, because I'm thinking of the mental challenge as well.
Yeah, I don't think I had any moments where I was really like, oh my God, I'm going to the nearest bus stop, and I'm getting to the airport and I'm flying home. I don't think it ever got that bad, but there were some times, you'd have a difficult day. It'd be a long day and my feet would be sore. Maybe my back would be sore with the backpack or whatever. And you get sort of overwhelmed by how much there was left to walk, basically. Like, I did remember having a few difficult days in Hungary in particular, and you're just there and you're like, my God, there's another 4,000 kilometres of this stuff, and getting really overwhelmed by it. But what kind of pulled me back from that was sort of just, learning to remind myself, look, don't worry about like all the bits that are ahead of you, just like, finish today and kind of, have your plan for the next few days and break it down into sort of manageable chunks, basically. Because if you look at it all at once, it's this mountain and you get kind of dismayed. But if you just focus on the bit in front, you'll be fine.
And I mean, you've already well surpassed the official Guinness World Record distance of 3,409 kilometres. I don't know how aware or otherwise you were of the point when you had done that, but if you were, that probably would be a huge fillip, knowing that you'd surpassed that barrier or that milestone and that you were in bonus territory.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. It did become an awful lot psychologically easier because that happened.
Hello,
This call is on hold.
Oh, and Eamonn has put us on hold. Let's see if we can get it back. Maybe his hands are hurting as much as his feet and he can't hold the receiver anymore. 086 1800 964. Listener, in relation to the piece that you heard at the top of the show, which has been covered in our news bulletins, Sean Lyne speaking with the developer Noel O'Loughlin, who is being stuck in that 20-year planning battle over his planning permission the planning permission he has sought for a mixed-use project on the site of Purcell's Lounge Bar in Rouen 5 times over the past 21 years. A listener here says the whole situation is disgusting. I wish Noel the very best. Any more on that? 086 1800 964. Now, I think we have Eamonn back on the line. Eamonn, are you there?
Hi, sorry about that. Some technical difficulties on my end.
You're all right. At least you're back with us. I wanted to ask you about I was asking earlier on about how long you thought this would take. I mean, even taking this long out of your life to do this, and also the logistics of, how far ahead did you plan on where you were going to stay, or did you just, when any town or city or village you arrived in, did you just rock up to the nearest B&B or whatever it might be? And also the financial aspect of being on the road in your bare feet for nearly a year. Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of sort of logistical stuff going on there. So I'm on a career break, which I'm very lucky to have been able to get. I work in the civil servants service. In terms of the financing, myself and Ellie just it was challenging because we were living and working in Dublin, and we were renting, and we saved up just a large chunk of cash to go and do this. So I've spent a substantial portion of my life savings just doing this. I simultaneously feel a mix of feeling like I'm lucky to be able to do this, in the sense that I don't have any dependents, and I'm from Ireland, so I have a strong passport and all that, and the currency is stronger compared to in Bulgaria, we'll say. But at the same time, there was a lot of sacrifice there, that we saved up a lot of money, and then we went and spent it walking across Europe, basically, in addition to a year of not working as well. Yeah,
on two fronts now. Eamonn, that's an incredible gesture, given you're doing this for Jigsaw and Friends of the Earth as well. I'm sure that's very much appreciated.
Yeah, well, I mean, there have been times that I've been like, God, what have I done, when I've seen my bank account? I suppose it's a once in a lifetime thing. I wouldn't want to reach the age of 85 and think, I wish I'd walked across Europe and not let, the money stop me. I'm not going to pretend it hasn't been a massive concern, because it was, but we kept costs down as much as reasonably possible with a lot of camping, particularly up until Germany. So, and when you're on the road and you're eating cheese sandwiches 3 times a day, it's not too bad. Western Europe got a bit more expensive.
That'll save money, but that sounds so monotonous.
Yeah, I don't recommend the thrice a day cheese sandwich diet now, to be honest. It's just what's readily available.
I'd say you'll never touch a cheese sandwich again in your life, will you?
I still have 2 weeks of this to go, and then after that, hopefully never. Hopefully never.
Very, very understandable. You're back in Ireland. You passed through Clare recently. Tell us where you're probably very sore bare feet by this stage took you through the Banner County.
Yeah, I had a great time in Clare, but it was unfortunately so short in the Banner County. So I left Limerick, and then I went up to Shannon, basically. And then from Shannon, I moved on to Ennis, and Ennis then on to Tubber, a bit west of Gort, I suppose. And then after that, across into Galway. And so I was in Clare for maybe 3 days, I was put up along the way, which was brilliant. There's the Park Inn at Shannon Airport and the Temple Gate in Ennis, and the Burren Inn right on the border. So I got to enjoy a couple of lovely pints of Guinness before I left Clare. It was really nice, but it was unfortunately, because Clare is such a nice county, and I only got to spend 2 or 3 days in it this time around, unfortunately.
Well, look, I'm sure once you have this journey completed and you have footwear back on you, you'll come back for a longer stay. But look, the finish line is in sight. I'm sure you'll be relieved to see Claremorris more than at any stage in your life. For anyone who wants to support you, Eamonn, how can they donate to help the two wonderful causes you're raising funds for, Jigsaw and Friends of the Earth?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's all online. It's on idonate.ie. Or idonate.ie/barefoot across Europe. But if you go to idonate.ie and you look up Barefoot, I think it'll turn up in the search bar. And it's 50-50 Jigsaw and Friends of the Earth.
Brilliant stuff. Hopefully you raise a lot of money for them, and it's an incredible feat you've undertaken and that you are going to successfully achieve as well. Eamonn Keaveney, walking barefoot across Europe. Well done, and thanks so much for chatting with us on the show.
Thanks for having me. Have a lovely day.
Take care. Eamonn Keaveney there. Some man, isn't he? Fair play to him. I don't think I could walk across Europe if I had a pair of steel toe cap boots on me, never mind barefoot.